Welcome to another episode of Global Health Talks on the brighter side. In each episode of the podcast, I talk to incredibly inspiring global health professionals whose work is offering hope for a better and healthier tomorrow. I'm Nika Stasny, a global health PhD student and your host. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Petra Salarić to the podcast. Petra is a researcher, designer, and women's health advocate whose work focuses on something many societies struggle with, talking about sensitive and vulnerable issues that matter. Through her work, she explores how addressing taboo topics can improve well-being, relationships, and ultimately have an impact on public health. Petra is the founder of PS Taboo, a consultancy dedicated to helping organizations, communities, and individuals navigate taboo topics and open conversations around issues that often remain unspoken, including areas closely linked to women's health and well-being. Today, she's here to share more about her journey and the lessons she's learned along the way. I'm thrilled to have you here. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here and to spend a Monday evening with you.
I really appreciate it, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you.
Me too.
So just to start off, can you tell us a bit about the path that guided you toward the work that you're doing today? And is it something that 14-year-old you have ever imagined doing?
No, absolutely not. I think even a 25-year-old me didn't imagine me being here. So how I got here, it's a good question, and I think that a lot about what I do, I don't really have too many ideas about, how my path should go. It's more about just listening, I think, to my gut and listening to what kind of motivates me. And I had a comment today with one person, and I said I do things until I find a reason not to do it or something better to do. So when I was very, very little, there was already like that kind of entrepreneurial side of me, which I didn't know. Fun fact, I actually didn't know that I was entrepreneurial until about 4 years ago, when the career advice person in my PhD said to me, "Oh, you're very entrepreneurial. Look at you. You did this project and you did that." And I'm like, "I'm entrepreneurial? I didn't know that was even a characteristic." I saw entrepreneurs as people who were mostly men, dressed up in suits. They had like these products that they were offering with like teams of 15 people behind them. So I didn't even know that I had that, inside of me. But I think that there is definitely that characteristic that I see, among people, and that's always like the little voice that's inside of you. That was always like, I saw something that I found to be unjust, and I said, like, I can't just look at it. I can't look at it. I have to do it. So when I was very young, I organized the flea market in my primary school because I actually saw with my grandma on Oprah that kids did that somewhere in the US. And I thought, that's so cool. I would love to do that. And then you will know this when in high school there was an issue of Lukaritz and how one of our very young boys died due to street violence. And I remember that I was like in tears and just thought, like, how can we simply accept that? How can we accept that? Why don't we create something? So I started organizing concerts. And then I found like about the issue with women's health. And so I thought maybe I can do a master thesis on it. Maybe I can actually start teaching it because people started asking me about it. So, and then by one thing led to another, and I thought maybe I can just combine all of that into a business. So I would say basically it's just like having that inner characteristic to do that, but also simply like what is like new life data that I get and what can I do based on that. Yeah.
I love that response. I love how you just are so free to change what you're passionate about in the moment and just know that it's gonna I hear confidence through all of this.
Oh, hell no. Hell
No.
no. Absolutely not. Like, I am really not a confident person. I think that confidence is first and foremost a skill that you base due to life experience and just being like, um, oh, I did that a couple of times, so I'm sure that I can do it. But I think that for me, it's just that simply like, I think that I just don't want to live with regrets. That is one thing. And I think that that desire to try things out or is so much stronger than the fear or than something else. Because for me, it's just like, I don't want to live my life and I don't want to do things that I don't like. You can even say it, I choose my pain. My pain is that I'm afraid, and I'm afraid, I think, most of my days I'm afraid. I'm afraid if I'm going to screw things up. I'm afraid if I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm afraid that someone will think that what I do is shit, because also there is no company out there working on taboos. There is no workshop that someone can find that is my workshop. I have zero blueprint to do what I do. But for me, it's simply like, okay, I'm afraid, but I want to try. I just want
Mhm.
to try. And that's like, and I think that that is something that I really wish for people to know. Any person that they admire, be that, I don't know, Michelle Obama, be that anyone, if you read anything that they write, you will see that they have fear. You will see that they are like literally like shit faced, like fearful of things. But it's still like you have to choose something. And you can choose comfort and you can choose regret, or you can choose like, I'm going to be afraid and I'm going to find my tribe of people that will be my cheerleaders and that can inspire me, because that's hell a lot of important. And sometimes I'm like, this is so hard that I don't know if it should be that hard. I don't know if I'm doing something right, but until I have the data, what I should do differently, there's nothing else. I just need to continue. So yeah, zero confidence. Believe me, it's literally like I'm just ignoring that. It's in the back and I continue my path. Yeah.
You just described how I'm sure everyone else feels, but I think the only
Mm,
difference between you who is going for it and doing it and someone who is still probably debating whether they should or shouldn't, you
mm,
accepted that it's uncomfortable. I know
mm.
you're combining research, activism, speaking, consulting. How does it look like working across all these different areas?
It's really, there's no one day that is the same. It's there absolutely isn't, because as you mentioned, like I do very very different things, and that's again, as I said, like just collecting data and seeing what I can do, because I'm also a PhD, so I finished my research, and that is kind of my tendency, is always like I start with one thing and then I see how it works, then I combine based on what I see people like. So I do from panels, workshops, online lectures for companies, mostly specializing in women's health, because that was my master thesis. And also recently, I did with one NGO on researcher of the impact of menstruation and menopause on the working life of women in Croatia. And then I teach at universities, how to design for taboos, how to work with taboos, how to have difficult conversation around taboo topics. And then I also, with the NGO that I did the research with, we're continuing the campaigns. So for this I'm doing mostly like social media and preparing like media campaigns on the topic. And I also do the event intimate storytelling, which is called Taboo Mic, where people share their experiences with taboo topics. So my days are really, they're not that interesting. They like there is a lot of emailing. I was just I was just babysitting my nephew today who has chickenpox, and he's like, Petra, why are you playing on your computer? And I'm like, that's not playing, that's my work tool.
I
Like
wish.
I'm working. Yeah, yeah. I wish, man. I wish I was doing some Crash Bandicoot or whatever the kids play these days. So yeah, so it's like any founder that will say we do like maybe 20% of our days we do our actual work, and most of it is all of the like background kind of work, from like the boring things like customer relationship management and making a ton of Excel sheets with trying to like gather all of the contacts, a lot of emails, like social media, which I can't wait to give that for someone else to do because I hate
Hmm.
it. But it's important because I think that especially when we're doing like the work that we are, where you're advocating for change, when you're trying to inform people about what can actually help them in their lives, or make aware people of certain policies or lack of policies or their rights, we have to bring that information in the most I would say consumable, easy language. So yeah, and of course I'm trying to be healthy and cook and do some exercise, and meditation is very important to me. Visualizations is very important to me. And luckily being a founder, that means that I can really align my days that it fits me the best, so I can go in the middle of a day, and that's something I tend to do a lot. I tend to go for walks in the middle of the day because my brain cells are not with me from 2 to 5, which is great Spaniards know about thing of siesta, which I miss. Um, and then yeah, also a lot of reading, trying out different things. So yeah, it's a mix of everything, of admin meetings, doing the work, and prepping for the other days, and then in the middle of there also find my time for my social life.
I think it's great for everyone to hear that chasing their dreams, that
Mm.
the reality of that is also just a lot of emails.
Yeah,
So if
yeah.
anyone finds themselves in that position, you're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah, I
It is just
know.
release a lot of emails, and of course the
Yeah,
Excel sheets and things that
yeah.
aren't the most exciting to get to the more
No.
exciting things.
Yeah.
So I really want to move on to now hearing more about your PS taboo.
Yeah.
I want to start off with just a thought of why do you think societies even create taboos in the first place?
Mhm.
And why do you think we can speak freely about some things and not the others?
Mm. Yeah, that's a very good question because so taboos have existed always. Firstly, maybe it's good to actually define what taboos are. So taboos are a social or religious custom that prohibits or restricts some form of association or interaction with a person, place, object, event, relationship. And and the important thing is like it is like a social or a religious norm. So that means that we have some that are shared, of course, like sex is everywhere taboo, mental health is everywhere taboo, but it's not the same level of intensity as everywhere. So, for example, to talk about mental health, I have found to be much, much easier and much more normalized in Netherlands when I was doing my master's than it was when I was in Croatia. So there is different levels of intensity. And there is also something that is by norm in certain countries. We use 5,000 different terms to say the word menstruation.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that menstruation or any other taboo topic, we can only speak about it in a specific context with our most closest ones. But as we see any form of advancement, equality advancement, specifically talking about women and LGBTQ rights, we can see that more and more things are less taboo. You know, like before, even in Croatia, if you were queer, you would be very, very scared for your life. Now you're scared in some parts of the country, but not in all of them, which is still a good thing. Or the fact that I was just, watching about marathon, running a marathon, like only couple of tens of years ago, it was seen like no woman can run a marathon. Now, not just that women are running marathons, we have our places in in the Olympics. So any form of advancement makes something less taboo, but it's crazy to think that certain things will never not be taboo. Yeah.
You believe that? You believe that we will not be able to eliminate some things?
No, no, because it's like first and foremost, it's human nature. Like talking about something that is socially frowned upon, is bringing discomfort.
I would love to know how, in your work, you handle taboos. So I know that you're the first person that developed a structured
Mm-hmm.
framework for addressing taboo
Mm,
topics. Can you tell us more about this approach when you
yeah.
lead conversations around taboo topics? You do it with organizations, academia,
Mm,
general public. How do you approach this when you are doing a workshop?
yeah. So the framework that I developed, that was in my master thesis, and that mostly focused on working on projects that handle taboos, and specifically with design. But when I teach at organizations and in universities about talking about taboos, the first and foremost thing that I do is I create certain ground rules that we all agree with. And I always use the principle of Chatham House, where which means that we can share certain stories, but we cannot share identities of people. And I also say that, as much as we respect other people's opinions, we also have to respect ourselves. So that means that, that we become responsible for ourselves. I'm not a therapist. I am a person responsible for creating the atmosphere in the room and for creating a safe space for people, but also meaning that I trust that other people are adults and that they're going to watch their own boundaries, what they share, what they don't share, and also create boundaries with other people. And then finally, I also always invite people to expand a bit their zone of discomfort and to stay curious. So to stay curious, both if a certain discomfort happened with them, but also to stay curious with other people. So if they don't agree with certain people, simply ask why. Because the fact is, the long you stay with a person and the more that you are genuinely curious about them, that you are curious about their worldview and where that happened, because that is the fact. There is no truth of the universe. There is no truth of what happens in the world. So I always say, like, you will have certain level of discomfort. Let's accept that. Let's
Mhm.
accept that we will feel uncomfortable. Let's accept that maybe there are certain things that you will more leave with question marks than with full stops. And that is
Yeah.
okay. See the space as an experimentation. So what I try to do is, first and foremost, as I said, the ground rules, but second, I create a balance. I create a relationship with people. I bring responsibility to them as much as I have a responsibility. Because in the end, I'm there for them. I'm not there to be like, oh, look how great I am. No, I'm there for them to use that space as their own exploration. And the third thing is, it is very, very interactive. So it is actually quite rarely that I tell people, this is what you should do. This is what you should do. No, I more ask questions. They open conversation. They question themselves. They talk to one another. They see, like, oh, why do you think that? Why do you think that? So it's always like these moments of, like, let us actually figure out what we think and how we think and why is that so? And is it important, or should we change that? So there's definitely a lot of, like, interactivity. I think I talk at like 15 minutes the longest.
Mhm.
I do bring, of course, statistics, because that's the fact. We need data. We need data to see why is something important. Oh, you don't know? Well, this is what statistics say. I also speak about transformative learning, which is like the process of affecting change in our point of view and in our habit of mind, because that is what is connected with transformative learning. So I try to explain to people, why is it actually shocking? Why is it hard? Why a lot of people like to stay with what they learned, because it's actually difficult for the brain to change that.
So you gave us the framework. I would love to
Mhm.
put this in an example, and I'm super curious of what
Mhm.
kind of taboo topics organizations most often approach you about. What do they want to talk
Mhm.
about?
Yeah, so mostly what companies approach me is about women's health. So, like, for example, the topics of menstruation or menopause. And of course, there's also the topic about mental health, because, well, the thing about mental health is that it's active in any type of taboo. So any person that is influenced by any type of taboo, and 99% of us are, if you're a woman, you're influenced by at least one taboo. Then you also have a certain consequence of mental health with you as well. So yeah.
How do you think this comes about in organizations? What do you think is their main inspiration for contacting you?
Well, I think that that at this moment is becoming to be a couple of different reasons. So first and foremost, so many organizations want, well, they sort of have to think about the well-being of their employees. So this definitely comes under employee well-being. There is also of certain like directives like ESG or achieving SDGs, and then there is also about employer branding as well. Like, especially if we're thinking about younger generations, they're not really thrilled about being in corporates that don't actually take care of their well being. So they know
Yeah.
that if they want to be competitive, they have to be as well creating spaces to talk about topics that we don't talk about but influence us. And then there are certain organizations, my favorites, that actually do care about being better, simply like being better and taking care of their managers or leaders to become better people. So those are mostly most of the reasons why.
Yeah, I'm so happy that that is happening, really.
Yeah, me too.
So,
Yeah.
since we're both from Croatia, you have mentioned it
Mhm.
already that you're doing the work in Croatia and all this Balkan mentality.
Yeah.
This is where you're currently working. You have studied abroad. But I would love to dive deeper into what you have experienced and learned through your advocacy for women's health in Croatia. So, could
Yeah.
you share a story or an event that really stayed with you to your recent work
Mhm.
in advocating for women's health in Croatia? And if you could pick out also which urgent or sensitive topics have stood out
Mhm.
most to you through your work.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, one of my favorite things is the research that we did um with on the impact of the symptoms of menstruation and menopause at work. My favorite moment was, as well, really to point to show that research is real data that we can base off changes. And so recently we presented the findings of the research at our parliament, and I had the man sitting next to me who was right wing, like very right wing. And he literally was sweating and with his jaw down, being like, I had no clue what women go through. And I have four daughters and a wife.
Wow.
Four daughters and a wife. And so it was unanimous decision that
Wow.
this presentation will go to like plenary discussion, meaning that they will actually be talking about creating policies to change the life of women in Croatia, which means that Croatia would be one of a few in the entire world to have policies from the government, and country regulated, because at this moment Spain has, but other countries mostly have like on the suggestion kind of level. So they suggest like to companies, but it's not regulated. You're at the mercy of the employer then. So that was like a really, I was more proud of that than finishing my PhD, to be really
Wow.
frank. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, but at the same time, it was, for me, what the research really showed. I mean, it did kind of, I would say, confirm what I sort of knew, but when you have the answers like really black and white, it
Yeah.
becomes fully different.
Yeah, please
Um,
share with us what was that
yeah,
provoked such a positive reaction and such an emotional reaction mm,
yeah, yeah.
to
So,
someone that wasn't aware of any of this,
yeah,
even with
yeah.
four daughters.
But what really from the research findings, what showed me, it showed me the magnitude of taboos and their impact, because we did the questions very strategically, where we asked them about their direct opinion and about their experiences, and the respondents said that, oh, they don't feel that they're treated any differently I think more than 50% said that they don't think that they are treated any differently when they're on their period. I think it was actually around 70. But then they wrote 152 very descriptive situations of exactly that, how they were treated differently. And then we had, like, check the box if this has happened to you when
Mm-hmm.
you had symptoms of menstruation and menopause. That literally describes, like, that is discrimination. There
Mm-hmm.
was two instances where women were fired because they couldn't handle, they had menopause, and menopause can really be strong symptoms where
Of
it
course.
affects your, from the fact that you're not sleeping, and we all know how we are when we're not sleeping. Like, we don't perform the best, or brain fog, or lack of confidence, and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So they were fired because of that, or they quit their work. And this is also the data that we see in other places as well. Like in the UK, 1 out of 8 women quits when they get into menopause because of stigma of menopause in their working place. We have with higher situations like endometriosis, where 1 out of 6 women with endometriosis in the UK, they cannot get a job because of the employer doesn't provide the working experience and conditions that can actually support their experience with endometriosis. And so our findings really showed to me, like, women don't know even that they're
Mm-hmm.
discriminated, because
Yeah.
these experiences are so normalized. They're so normalized that we think that, oh, this is absolutely normal. And then they're like, oh, and about 50% of them said that they feel comfortable to share their needs and problems at work. And then when you ask them, who do they actually speak to? Less than 11% of respondents actually speak to their managers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, less
Yeah.
than 11%. So wait, who can actually change your conditions? It's your manager, it's the HR, but they don't speak to them. So why don't you speak to them if you're saying, but it's the thing that we're so normalized. It's so
Yeah.
normalized for us to, like, to not talk about it. It's so normalized for us to suffer in silence, to just complain to our girlfriends, to our female colleagues, that I think it's, for so many women, it's hard to even imagine that there's another universe for us. It's so hard to
Absolutely.
imagine that we can even have it better. And that is also why we see a rise of female founders, because they're like, I am done with living like this. I'm done in being in pain of my
Mm-hmm.
endometriosis, or being belittled, or being, told off when I'm sweating because I have my hot flash. I don't want to be doing that. And
Mm-hmm.
most of women, when they get into menopause, they're at the peak of their career. And so they're like mocked, for forgetting what they were talking about. They're mocked for the fact that they are, having hot flashes and
Mm-hmm.
needing to perform the same. And so that's why more and more female founders are there, because they say, I want to create my own working experience.
Yeah. I love that you brought this up, especially the part of how we normalize it as women. So it wasn't, so when we talk about this research, my first thought is like, this is the message to the men and
Mm,
to whoever is not supporting. But the point of how we normalize it, I had such a similar conversation today at lunch with a researcher that's been working on making green spaces, parks feel safer for women, and absolutely something that I think we can all really understand why. But I told her I feel
mm,
embarrassed that I didn't even consider this being an option, that we should change our environments around us. It was just kind of
mhm,
this idea. I don't like it, but I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't think
mhm,
that I have power to change it, while
mm.
she's thankfully working on this, gathering evidence, and thinking of designing just better spaces
Yeah,
for us with
yeah,
us in mind.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I think
Um,
this is incredible research, all of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and congrats for the success. It makes me so happy. Really,
Thank
that's
you very
amazing.
much.
Yeah.
You said something is really important, which I want to share, and that is, um, and this is another thing that I say in the workshops always, is that this the room has no space for shame, because we are a product of our environment. If you were brought up in the society where certain needs of yours weren't even considered, like for example, I work on taboos, but I'm not an expert in all of the taboos. Like I really know well about the space of women's health. But if you put me, for example, to work on the topic of death, I would be from Adam, like I would be
Mm-hmm.
working from scratch, and there's no way that I would know immediately of the needs of certain people. And the problem is that taboos and stigma are so interrelated with shame, but what shame does, it it freezes us. It freezes our sympathetic nervous system. It stops us from being creative. It prevents us from connecting to the other person, and it prevents change. And this is like research proven. It is the opposite of psychological safe place. And if you are in a
Mm-hmm.
psychological safe place, that is where we know that there is creativity, there is
Mm-hmm.
innovation, there is connection between people. So I would say,
Yeah.
like, really never ever feel shameful for anything, because the best thing that you can do right now, oh, I have data, I didn't know that, that's great, now I can go and speak to other people. Like, it's a fantastic place, to be. And this is also one of the reasons why men are not in the spaces when it's spoken about women's health. Because, and this is something that I see continuously, like there is shaming of men because they don't know. Like, let's be frank, I don't know about males' health either. The problem is, yes, realistically, men are in the decision making places. They mostly are. But like, they're also not taught either about women's health. There are a couple of great men in some of the workshops that I do that genuinely do want to know better, but they were also preconditioned through their upbringing, through the environment, that the topic of women's health is for women only. And so and I really am really passionate about this, and I want to figure out how to get them more into the room. But one of the main reasons is like why they freeze is because they're like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to seem stupid. I don't want to seem, like there's no place for exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that perpetuates the difficulty of creating change societally
Yeah.
is shame.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody wants to say the wrong thing or sound stupid, but it will just limit us more from having these conversations. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's an excellent point, and I think it's really great that you're also admitting that there's things that you also don't feel so comfortable talking about. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we shouldn't start, because it will help
Yes.
all of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. If
Yeah.
yeah, we're humans, we make errors. Yeah.
So you now mentioned that you want to bring in more men into the conversation. My next question was going to be about bringing more people into conversation, especially young people or early
Mm.
career professionals. How do you think they can get involved if they want to reduce stigma around them or support topics around women's health, men's health?
Mm. Yeah, well, I think that first and foremost is just start the conversation in your circle. I swear, if I had a penny for every time a person told me, I'm so glad that you're talking about this, I'm so glad that you mentioned it, I felt
Mm-hmm.
so alone. So I would say just like start the conversation. Secondly, get the info on it, really. Like, get some data, just, inform people, like, ask questions. Like, the best thing ever is just like ask questions, like to your surrounding, like, did you ever think about this, what do you think about that? Get connected with NGOs, like, you don't have to be involved with every single topic, like, because I'm not involved with every single topic, I'm not passionate about every single topic, like, it's impossible. But find some cause that you personally enjoy, or not even say that you personally enjoy. Like, as I said at the start, I really use taboos as my personal development tool. Like, if I feel uncomfortable about some topic, that only means I don't know about it yet. And then I speak, with my surrounding. And then, if you decide, okay, this is something that I really want to work on, find an NGO, get on social media, follow, certain people, share maybe, with someone else. see how you can support the cause, see how you can maybe make a difference where you are, like I did a couple of campaigns in my universities about these topics. I started certain initiatives, and just if you are really passionate about it, if you believe it, you really have no clue where it's going to take you. Like the research that I told you about, you know how it started simply from a coffee. I just met a
Mm,
person and I'm like, you know what? I came to Croatia. I want to do something about it. Can we do something about it? And now we're literally speaking with the government of Montenegro because they want to do the same. They want for us to support their research. You really never know where your life is going to take you if you are doing something truly authentic, if you're doing something
mm.
really from your gut, and especially if it's on topics like taboos where you really can change a life, it's the most gratifying thing that you can ever do.
So inspiring for everyone out there
Thank
listening.
you.
Truly, these amazing things I hear it multiple times
Yeah.
happen just from the cup of coffee, and obviously
Mm.
also with right people around you as well supporting you,
Yes.
but mostly with what
Yes.
you said, this gut feeling
Yes.
of this is what I have to do.
Yeah, I mean, what you
Mm.
said now, I cannot bold it enough. Right, people. I think like we so underestimate like the power of the people around us. Your best currency is your time, and then that the part that goes into that currency is also people who you spend the time with.
Yeah, I
Mm.
think that's such an amazing way to wrap up with the importance of community.
Mm.
I think that's something that cannot be highlighted enough, really.
Yeah.
I hope that everyone that listened to this will first step that they will make is learn to sit in their discomfort, start having conversations that they want to talk about but don't feel that they can.
Mm.
They should, that make them feel uncomfortable, but this was such a great message of how much we needed to grow as a
Mm.
society and to be happier. Really, thank you so much.
Thank
It was such a
you.
pleasure talking with you.
Thank you for providing me the space to do so.
Talking with Petra made me reflect on how important it is to break stigma and taboos if we truly want to improve health outcomes globally. And I think in today's conversation, women's health, and here specifically research around menstruation and menopause, served as such a powerful example of this. Because when we start talking openly about topics that were previously ignored or hidden, as we can see, we also improve working conditions, mental health, policy discussions, research priorities, and ultimately people's quality of life. And I think this goes far beyond women's health. As I said, this was just one strong example. There are so many diseases, conditions, and experiences that people still feel ashamed to talk about, which is exactly why these discussions matter so much in global health. For the end, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in. I'm already excited for the next episode. I am releasing episodes every 2 weeks. And of course, feel free to reach out to me through social media with thoughts, feedback, speaker suggestions, or topics you would love to hear more about. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow, leave a 5-star review, and share it with someone who you think would enjoy this conversation too. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of Global Health Talks.